And now, a word from the Lord.
Now, when you talk about prosperity and upliftment, and God will put you on the top of the mountain, and God will always make you the champ, and oh yeah, but what about esteem others better than yourself? A complete paradigm shift. And he doesn't say treat others better than yourself just because they treat you good. Paradigm shift. You don't treat others better than you only when they behave the way you like them to behave. Are y'all all right? Okay. This is paradigm shift stuff. This means change how you think here. But I don't like that person. That ain't the question. And that ain't even on the table. I don't like them ain't the problem. The real issue here is, will you treat others better than yourself unconditionally? Even when you upset. Man, you get married for a few days, you understand that bad boy. Oh, don't get quiet. Me and my wife understand this concept because when she's mad, I still gotta eat. She has to still be a servant of humility. And even when I'm mad at her, I still gotta pay the bills. She still need a place to live. Y'all not saying nothing. We don't like each other all the time. Y'all don't like when I get like that. I know. Here he go. Here he go. I just want to get past it. No. In marriage, you don't always like each other. And marriage is a good example of how to learn how to treat someone better than yourself even when you ain't vibing. That's real stuff right along in there. The concept is in the church. Are y'all following that? That concept's in the church. I don't care who you are in the church. You better learn this mentality. You got to learn it. Esteem others better than yourself. Why? Because the church has to be unified. The church has to operate as one corporate entity that operates on the same purpose. And you can't be selfishly ambitious and be into your vainglory and not be of a lowly mind, because you will be a hindrance to the church. I believe some people can be assets to the church and some can be a hindrance. How does Paul deal with this? Paul said, man, y'all not of the same mind? You're fussing, you're fighting, you're selfishly ambitious. Let me help y'all with how to fix the problem. Because a lot of y'all still got your same mind. But what I'm going to need you to do to answer the problem is let this mind. Now, y'all see why he brings this up? So now we know Paul is not bringing this up just to prove Jesus is God. He's trying to deal with a mentality in the church. Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. Why do they need to let this mind be in them? Because they need to lose their mind and adopt the mentality of Jesus. Now, okay, when you read this verse, it seems easy. Okay, here it is. Let this mind in this text is an imperative. Okay, it's a command. That means it don't happen automatically. That means when you get out of the water baptism, it don't mean all of a sudden you got a new mind. Let this mind is a command. That means you must actively work on changing your mind. One of the hardest things to change is your mind. How you think. One of the hardest things for me to change is my mind. And there's a lot of folk who quote these verses, but they never applied it. And I've learned in the Lord's church, we've encouraged folk to do more quotation than explanation. so they can quote all the verses. I mean, there's members that are out quote preachers and leaders. Matter of fact, quote scripture at you to put you in line. I'm like, man, I know what that verse means. I'm a preacher. I went to school for this stuff. I know, but you need to read. Can quote everything, but have a hard time explaining and understanding the reason for the passage. This verse is in the Bible not only to prove Jesus is God, but to tell you, change your mind. Application. All right, I'm almost done. Let this mind be in you. Watch how he does it. Let this mind, this mind. What kind of mind? What are you dealing with, Paul? Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. Well, what kind of mind did Jesus have? Who being in the form of God. Listen, y'all gotta stay with me now, because you won't get it unless you get all of the understanding of the passage. Who being in the form of God. The word being is a Greek participle that indicates one's state of being and their essential nature. Who being, it's a present participle, which means whatever this being is, he will always be that. Stay with me. Who being, whatever he's about to say, this is something about Jesus that will never change. Who being in the form or the morphe of God. Now the word morphe means one's essential nature. Jesus was in the form of God, which means he was the very nature of God. Not only is he the very nature of God, but the word morphe means the outward expression of his true essence. I wish y'all was with me on that. That means Jesus being in the form of God doesn't just mean he's God, that he is, and it does include that, but it means the outward expression of his divine essence. Okay. Let me help you. Jesus could not come to earth in the outward expression of his true essence. Because if he did, you couldn't see him and live. The outward expression of his divine essence is the outward expression of his divine glory. No man can see God's glory and live. So in order for Jesus to come to earth, he must empty himself of the outward expression of his divine essence. Because if he comes in his glory, they would not see him and live. Moses said, God, show me your glory. And God told Moses, no man can see my glory and live. And if you want a glimpse of my glory, you gotta get in the cliff of the rock, and I'll make my back parts pass by. Because if you directly have an encounter with my glory, you will die. Jesus was in the morphe, outward expression of his true divinity. Watch it. He was in the, it's going to be a PowerPoint in a minute. Who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. He was of his nature, therefore being equal for Jesus was not something to be snatched or held on to. Meaning this: Jesus was in the essence of God, outward expression of it, and he was equal with God. He thought it not robbery to be equal. Now, the word robbery here does not mean what our English word robbery means. The word robbery here means something to be held on to. Now, I know that's the definition because of the contrast in the next verse. He says, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself. Which means the word robbery here means something to be held. Jesus did not hold on to his equality with God, but made himself of no reputation. Now let's interpret this thing. Jesus never stops being God. In that sense, he will always be God. But he subordinates himself. And in emptying himself, he empties himself of the outward expression of divine glory. And the text says he took upon him the form of a servant. Y'all with me so far? What did Jesus do? The word empty himself is the Greek word kenosis, to empty. Jesus emptied himself of divine glory, took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Watch it. And being found in fashion as a man, he, watch the mindset, humbled. What is Paul trying to teach here, y'all? Paul is trying to teach something about humility. He went through all that to teach you what it means to be humble. What does it mean to be humble? Look at the mindset of Jesus. Being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal, but was willing to empty himself, took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Now, I like that. He says he was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion, that word fashion is also, can be translated form, but it's not morphe, it's schema. Schema means outward appearance. His morphe was that he was God, but his schema was that of a man. Schema means just what you see. He was a man only in outward appearance. So Jesus, when you see him die, you only see his schema die. His outward appearance. Oh, Christ died, but not his divinity, just the schema. I think I heard the Hebrew writer say, a body thou hast prepared me. That's another story. Jesus, here's the mindset. If you in the church and you want to learn what is the mind of Jesus, Paul said, here's his mind. You got to learn how to empty yourself. We got some folk in the church who are now members of the church, but they ain't had no kenosis. They haven't emptied themselves of their perceived glory. So folk get in the church and still think it's about them because they ain't had no kenosis. When you get in the church, you got to learn how to empty yourself. You got to learn how to not make it about you, but empty yourself of your perceived glory. Jesus had glory. You got perceived glory. Perceived glory means you ain't really got no glory. But you need to come, and when you get in the church, you got to humble yourself and take on yourself a form of a servant, and that reveals the mindset of a servant or humility. Are y'all following what I'm saying? Now, for some folk, this ain't popular, but I'm telling you, everybody in the church don't function as no servant. Listen. And we all serve, but in different capacities. Now, Jesus' status was he was God. That's his status. But he became a servant. Okay. When he becomes God, He never lost his status, but he didn't allow his status to eclipse his servanthood. So who he is doesn't get in the way of him doing servanthood. Some folk can be so caught up in their status that they can't be a servant. So it's about who they are rather than what God would have them to do. But Jesus was God. That's his status. But his status didn't get in the way of his servanthood. You can get into church and be a doctor, and that would be a great accomplishment. And when you get into church, guess what? You're still a doctor. That's your status. Okay, some of y'all don't like doctors. I know y'all don't even like when we call folk doctor. Doctor is an academic achievement that should be acknowledged and honored because the person worked hard to get a doctorate. Okay, it's biblical. Gamaliel in Acts 4 is called Dr. Gamaliel. They acknowledged his academic achievement. Nothing wrong with having academic achievement and nothing wrong with being a doctor in the church. The problem comes in is when you're a doctor that can't serve. Did y'all just hear what I said? When your status gets in the way of your service. Jesus, as I close, Jesus was God. But he was so much a servant that he could wash feet. And he that was God wrapped himself with a towel and washed the feet of even Judas. Can you wash the feet of the Judas in your life? And the only way you can do that is if you know how to esteem others better than yourself. See, some folk can't wash Judas' feet, but will wash John's feet. Because John has shown some loyalty. Are y'all following what I'm saying? Peter has demonstrated some level of loyalty, although in a minute he finna deny Jesus 3 times. But Jesus could wash the feet of the folk that would deny him and the Judas that would betray him. And when Christ did it, he said, I've left you an example. Can you do that? And when Jesus comes back, he ain't checking for titles. He checking for towels. And the question on the table is going to be, how dirty is your towel? Some of us, our towels are way too clean. We ain't been using our towel because we so caught up with selfish ambition, and we caught up in who treats us how. And if you don't like me, I don't like you. And if you treat me that way, I treat you back that way. You gotta lose your mind. I'm finished. I can't even finish this, but you better believe this is part 1. You better believe that. Oh yeah, we ain't finished with this mind thing, because we need help with it. Everybody in here need help with their mind. Everybody. Man, my mind. Sometimes I get so angry, I gotta check my mind. Because in your anger, you can get vengeful. Because it's your mind. But Jesus said, you got to change your mind. weeks to come, I'm going to show you in the book of Ephesians. Change of mind also must lead to change of behavior. Because it's hard to change your behavior if you ain't changed your mind. Now, if you're here, I'm finished. If you're here, and if you have listened to the sermon, if you really have adopted the message, it's not just about the theology, church, it's about the practicality. Jesus is God, yeah. Jesus incarnate in the flesh, he did. How do you apply that? I too must have a kenosis. I too must learn how to empty myself. One of the hard, I'm done. I promise you I'm done. But when I preach sermons like this, I have had difficulty in a time or two practicing what I'm preaching. I'm telling you. Because sometimes I don't want to wash the feet of people who I don't think appreciate me. I'm talking Orpheus now. I'm not talking about nobody else. Sometimes it's hard to wash the feet of folk who act like you ain't done nothing of value, overlook you, act like your contribution means nothing, and then God turns around and says, now esteem them better. I ain't talking theoretically right now. I'm telling you what your preachers struggle with. Because when you work hard for the church and you put your blood and sweat in the church and folk act like it ain't nothing, it's always been like this, you want to drop your towel. And God says, yeah, I understand. Because I came and made a difference in the world, and they killed me. It's one of those epiphanies. Yeah, oh, they do that. And then they put me on the cross. And I died. And even the ones that didn't appreciate what I came to do and what God did through me, I still said, Father, forgive them. For they know not what they do. But on the third day, and here's the sobering thought, God hath highly exalted him. What you gotta learn to do is wait on God to do the exalting. Because when man exalts, he also takes off what he exalted. In other words, they'll put you up today and kick you out tomorrow. Love you today, hate you tomorrow. And the ones, when you depend on man's exaltation, the day will come when he will try to pull down the one he exalted. It's the nature of man. Have you ever cooked crabs? Just the other day, when me and my wife went to Virginia, my parents buy the blue crabs. Those are the ones that are alive. And then they just all in there. And when one reaches up and he is elevated above the other crabs, inevitably, one of them crabs in the bucket and in the Lord's church, The ones that you think let you get up there one day. But when God exalts, can nobody pull down. When God lifts, that lift is permanent. I've come today to tell you, that was probably more for me than anybody else, but that's the reality of life, boy. And then God says, now, since you know that, go on and wash everybody's feet. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And suck it up. And I struggle. And I'm sure some of y'all struggle. You may not admit it, but I know some of y'all, you know some folk that you like, my God, I so don't want to wash that person's feet. But God says you got to do it. And it don't matter how you feel about them. And it don't matter how they treat you. It don't matter if they don't appreciate you. They wash their feet. Serve them in spite of them.
Thank you for watching the West End Church of Christ Living by Faith weekly TV program. It is our prayer that you will accept our invitation to come and worship with us. We are located at 1303 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, Atlanta, Georgia 30310. We meet every Sunday at 8 a.m., 10:45 a.m., and 6 p.m. worship services. We have Bible study classes every Sunday at 9:40 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. For more information or to order a copy of today's sermon, please visit us at www.thewestender.com.